This is Anthony Kiedis speaking. I'm here with Chris Warren. Chris is a friend, a coworker, an associate, and also a musician that we play with nightly. Chris is going to ask me some questions, and I'll give you my answers.
Okay.
And we'll get on with the show.
All right. Well, please share a story, memory, or anything that comes to mind about the albums listed below. Unlimited Love.
Which is packaged here with the Return of the Dream Canteen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this could take an hour or two, so get comfy. This is another one of those weird situations where someone has left the band and survived to tell the tale, and then somehow ended up back in the band, and that's kind of a big part of the story here. We were on a pretty big hiatus after the getaway, and Flea came to me. Oh no, I came to Flea. I was like, Flea, I gotta talk to you about something. And he's like, no, I have to talk to you about something. I was like, okay, I'm sure you do, but since I just came to you with something to talk about, maybe I'll talk to you about something.
I'm going to go first.
No. He's like, what I have to say is pretty darn important. I was like, well, yeah, what I have to say is also in the realm of importance. Right. So we had that. And then we were both saying, I think it's time to include John in our process somehow, some way, because he is a brother and an important, energetic component to our success and our happiness and our ability to reach our highest selves creatively. Yeah. Josh was amazing. We did very well with Josh. I love that experience. Nothing but positive, but it's kind of like that movie with Tom Hanks and the volleyball. Castaway. So while he's away, his wife takes another husband, and then he remarkably, shockingly, gets a submarine rescue or whatever, and shows up, and the wife's like, dude, I thought you were dead. I had to go ahead and get married. But if that's your lifelong love, you have to honor, you're like, sorry to the new husband, but I didn't think the guy was going to live. What do I do? So I felt like that was like, John is just, he's undeniable for us.
Part of the DNA, I would sort of
say. He was in the DNA even before he was in the band. He was just like
absolutely,
psychically connected. And I look back on the Josh time as being super positive and fun, and so enter John, and he's ready to go to work, but it's been a long time since we've done the work. So without any real timeline or expectations, we're just like, let's just write as many songs as we can, and we'll go from there. And then that was going, and it was going, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but then we get this weird text that I think, Gage read. He's like, there's some sort of worldwide epidemic sickness that's like descending on us as we
don't
speak.
Worry about it though, it's not gonna.
He's like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do those live shows next week, or we had like some weird little tour, and I was like, hell no. And so then time became elastic, and we had extra time, and we all were told to go to our houses, and the writing just kept rolling, and we didn't know what was good and what wasn't good. But like, let's just record everything.
I would almost say it's one of the rare cases of where COVID almost helped a situation.
100%.
It's kind of one of the only times I can think of a positive effect.
COVID was my bro at that time.
No, I mean,
I was in this room that we're sitting in now by myself with tapes, CDs, and recordings, and nowhere to go. So then we lay all those basic tracks. We have like 50 some odd basic tracks of bass, drums, guitar. I'm still like trying to write some words to catch up. And Rick's going to Kauai where he has a vocal recording studio. I'm like, I'm going to Kauai too. I get to Kauai, they shut down the island. No one is allowed to come unless you quarantine in this excessive scenario. There's a landslide in my neighborhood, so I can't leave my neighborhood. The only place I can get to is Rick's. I spend the next 6 months of just waking up in paradise with no people, except my producer who has the basic tracks. So for me, it was the dream scenario.
Ideal situation, yeah.
I loved it. I had my son. I had pad of paper and a pencil.
No, it's funny, like, working at that time with you, it's, you know, everyone in the world's like, oh, it's so crazy, I can't, you know, go out and do this and whatever. And I'm like, things are pretty good. where our little bubble was, and it was a bubble, but like it like never hindered the creative process, never, like, we just kind of kept going.
It might have been the happiest time of my life. I'm not kidding.
No,
I'm not kidding.
It's wild, but yeah, no.
It was very wild.
Yeah.
The Lakers won a championship in the bubble.
Okay.
And so that was the kind of the creation of Unlimited Love and Return of the Dream Canteen. And then we had this, so we finished the songs. I sang the songs with Rick. It was really fun writing them. I was very in love with my job and my position, and I would call John, I would call Flea on the phone, I would try out different ideas. I remember singing Poster Child to John, and he's like, I think you have something there. Which he wouldn't just like throw that out there if you didn't have something there. No. So I was like, yes, John says I have something there. No. And that's on a fuzzy cell phone conversation from an island that doesn't get great reception, but
a couple of coconuts and a string.
That's all it is. And then we have this scenario whereby we have the 50-some songs, and we have to now select songs for a record. Like, well, there's 11 songs on a record. We have 50-some. What are we going to do? Let's do a quadruple record. And we start weighing all of our options. What songs are we going to choose? So we decided to put out 2 double records, which made sense to us.
Why not? Why not?
Go against the grain.
Yeah.
Most people are putting out a single or 2. It's so exciting. It's so great to be in a band with your boys, and all the weird things that we bitch and moan about. And really, at the end of the day, it's like we have the greatest lives and jobs and experiences, and get to write music.
It was an exciting time. I mean, like, note 1, it was like, oh, yeah, this is the magic.
Well, John had been sitting on a couple of nuggets, a couple of gems that he was prepared to share with us that day. One of which was the beginning of Black Summer.
Yeah. But just not even so much, but just the chemistry of you 4 guys. It was just like this instantaneous, just like, it's like, oh shit, like this is for real. This is what it's supposed. It was. I remember having like a visceral sort of reaction, and I was probably upstairs and was trying to sort of be off, but I was like, oh,
Chris, what are you doing up there? Are you spying on us? Those guys really know how to be in a band with one another.
Yeah.
Chad is you can bank on Chad as a drummer. Yeah. He shows up.
I think so.
He shows up. He's ready to go. He has an incredible ear. He listens. He hears for sure what John's playing. Yeah. Chad is hearing.
He's one of the best listeners.
He's a good listener.
I think that's why he's sort of world-renowned drummer that he is, because he's one of the best listeners.
Agreed. Yeah. Certain musicians, I think he likes listening to more than others.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think John is one of those guys he connects with.
Yeah.
He's like, they have a commonality in their love for different music. Yeah. And
what I remember being fun about that too was how you guys started out playing old songs
to kind of shake the rust off a little bit, and also find the spirit of where we came from, so we didn't forget where the fuck we came from.
I mean, like songs that I haven't heard you guys play in years. It was just so fun.
That's because we forgot where we came from.
I'm glad you remembered, but it didn't seem to. It didn't feel like it was any shaking off of. It was like, oh, like wow, like they're playing shit off of.
I'm pretty sure
Freaky Styling.
Yeah, and Uplift and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think that was John's design. I think if somewhere in him, at least my interpretation of the reason why is because he wanted us to experience that weird voodoo that we had in the 80s and the 90s, and remember, stay connected to that. And then John's next suggestion, which I found fascinating and smart, was to learn a few blues songs. Covers. Yeah. Well, I threw in the non-blues, but he was bringing like the cool blues.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is he doing that? Oh, I see why he's doing that, because that's kind of where it all comes from, and that's where it started. Yeah. That's where like all of the great late 50s rockers were listening to a blues song. I'm like, I think I can rock that up a little bit.
Yeah. Make this a little faster or a little,
So very, very smart on his part. There you have it. So Californication, that was another record where John had come back.
Yeah, no, we can almost piggyback this as similar.
Rebirth of an experience. It is very rebirthy. I guess one of my most emotional memories of this was the beginning. So John had left after Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and he and I had parted ways, which was sad and disruptive, because John and I had been like best friends for a long time, and then as people grow and change and the world turns, then we just parted ways. And even though there was an unspoken animosity, I didn't want there to be even though someone was coming for me, I was like, I hate this feeling I'm having of animosity towards a great person that I love and had experiences with. So I did a weird thing where I decided to pray every day for John for 30 days in a row, just to see if the animosity would dissipate. It was something I was taught. Every night I would say, I wish that, John would have happiness and success and health and prosperity and good laughing sessions, and just basically whatever I would want for myself, I would wish for him every day for 30 days. And shortly thereafter, Flea came to me and he's like, the only way I would continue the band at this point is if John was in the band. I was like, well, that ain't gonna happen. So I guess it's time we say goodbye to all our family. And he's like, well, not so fast. I have this feeling in my bones that he would come back. And I was like, John don't like me. John's not going to come back. He's like, well, why don't you go visit him? I was like, go visit him? Really? So that process happened. And the next thing you know, I'm in John's loft with an ashtray, a pad of paper, a record player, and a beat up Stratocaster. And we're just spending late night long hours writing and kind of remarrying our friendship, and it was super fun and interesting. And oddly enough, I had written the lyrics and kind of the basis for Californication before that, and I had it in a notebook, and I was like, here's this lyric, this is kind of the cadence, the basic melody. And he's like, oh, I can work with that. Months went by. We wrote all these other songs. We recorded the record, and we had not figured out Californication. He loved it, but he was like, I don't really have the right thing for it. And I'm like, yeah, well, we're going to want that one on there. And he's like, yeah, maybe next time. I was like, okay, well, we have a lot of other good stuff. And I was probably doing vocals and getting close to done, and I remember the door of Ocean Way opening up, and like we're in a darkened studio and the sunlight filters in through the door, and John's got his guitar. He's like, I found it. I was like, found what? I found the chords for Californication. I got it now. I'm like, oh, okay, let's hear it. And he's like, on a electric guitar, sometimes acoustically it's hard to hear. Yeah. So he plays a couple of twangy notes, and I'm like, cool, let's record it. Wow. So that was a song that almost wasn't. Wow. Well, there's always a song like that on the record. Are we going to do Can't Stop on this record? I mean, if we have time. Shit like that. So.
But the album's already called Californication. We need a song.
It was not yet called Californication. It's called Des Moines at that point. Yeah. A lot of ballads about the winter months of Des Moines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A song that is so good that you wish you had written or played on.
That's a twisted question. There's probably 1,000 songs that I've listened to and said, if only I could write a song that good.
Yeah.
Or what would it be like if I could have played on, but that's just not how it works. I listen to Bob Dylan or Jimi Hendrix or Public Enemy, and they've written all these like super last forever songs, but I'm glad that I didn't write them or sing on them, because I would have messed them up. Like Axis Bold as Love, I listened to that and I'm like, whoa, will I ever capture that kind of intensity? And maybe I won't, but I can keep trying. I'd rather just receive the high bar goal from these people.
Be inspired.
Like every time I hear "Let's Get It On," I'm like, How did he do that? How did he do that?
It's like, you're telling me a human being wrote this? Like,
not to mention that bass.
Whoa! Don't get me started.
Don't get me started. So I don't ever, pull a Rumpelstiltskin and smash my foot to the ground, going like, why can't I? It's like I'll write what I write. It might not be Jimi Hendrix, but there's somebody out there in the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah. What Red Hot Chili Peppers song doesn't get enough credit?
I feel like they all get too much credit. I don't know. I don't know what kind of credit songs get.
Yeah, like what is that?
I don't know what kind of credit songs get. I'm going to throw a song out there, and for all I know, it did get too much credit, but I didn't hear about it. And this is a song that we spoke of briefly, which is White Braids and Pillow Chair. It is one of Rick Rubin's favorites, if not his favorite, off of Unlimited Love. He gets that crazy smile on his face when I'm like, hey, we're playing White Braids. He's like, oh, I love that song. It is kind of a sneaker tune.
Yeah.
It's super mellow. It doesn't demand your attention, but it might lure certain curious individuals into listening.
I remember when you told me lyrically, like sort of what inspired you about that song.
Okay.
I found pretty beautiful, like really touching the story of the couple that you saw.
I have not forgotten.
And
I was with my girlfriend, but on that beautiful sunny day, we drove north to Ventura, where we wanted to go to a diner for breakfast, and it was a low budge, old school, down home, blue collar at best. Greasy Spoon diner. And we bellied up to our table, and I looked across the aisle, and I saw an older couple who were probably in their young 70s. And the man had the most beautiful white braids I had ever seen. He looked like a native, some kind of native, maybe Mexican mixed with native. And his woman, who you could tell they had spent eternities together, that's just the kind of, they had become this single entity, had brought her own damn pillow to the diner for her fanny, lest those diner chairs be a little abrasive on the butt cheeks. And I looked at him and I was like, wow, white braids and a pillow for her chair, and they love each other, and God knows what they've been through, and they're just like they're cruising this life together. And I tucked it away in one of those little folds. I was like, there's a song there. It's
like a good encapsulation. Just that phrase alone, to me, it says a lot. Just the white braids, the time spent together, the pillow for the. It's just, I don't know. To me, it speaks to me of just like, obviously I was not there, but I have this picture of this couple now, and it I don't know. It touches me.
Yeah. It touched me. It touched me, and then I just gave their little sauce to you. At very least, I was going to write a poem about them, an unpublished poem. But when you're writing 50 songs, you might have to break out some of those old poems. Like, didn't I have that thing lying around here somewhere? But yeah, it stuck with me. And then the rest of that song kind of fleshed out in like we're driving up the coast, because it speaks to a few different coastal zones in the weird outro, which sounds a little bit.
It's like double time.
It's double time. Yeah, it's got that California guitar sound.
Yeah, no, it's like it evokes like a very California, sunset palm tree. I don't know. To me, it evokes that sort of.
I feel like I call out Santa Cruz, maybe a couple other coastal haunts along the way. I hope that couple is, 80 something now, and they're like, this sounds like us.
Best tour prank you've ever pulled on other band members or on another band. I can tell you a prank you pulled on me.
Well, that was gonna be my answer. It wasn't the best prank in the world,
but it was mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
As an exercise,
Yes.
it was successful.
Yes.
And I guess you don't pull a prank on somebody that you don't have a connection with.
No.
Chris and I had been traveling the globe, and we were probably in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Europe. Yep. And
I remember it well.
And we talk a lot about the joy of drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Because when you're on tour, you need a little something to do. You need a little.
There's one ritual touring that will always stay with me. That's coffee first thing of the day. I mean,
yes. So Chris he's a multifaceted person on tour. He plays keyboard, synthesizer, tambourine in our songs that require these instruments. But then he's also a drum technician. So Chris has to get up a little bit earlier than I do every day. And I think he's just like, well, at least I have that coffee to look forward to.
Exactly.
I come out of the bus and I'm like, I'm making that beeline for, and we carry pretty good coffees on tour. We try to accommodate. So I decided to eliminate any sign of coffee in the known RHCP universe, just to see if Chris was paying attention. Get rid of all the coffee, all the coffee makers, all of the anything that could possibly turn into coffee.
Any creamer. Just
remove it. But then act like it's absolutely normal.
What do you mean?
Groundhog's Day. Yeah. What are you talking about? And it worked. What was your experience there?
My experience there was disbelief because I was like, what is happening? Am I going crazy? Because if I remember correctly, we have coffee machines with us all the time. Where are they right now? I was in total disbelief and shock. It was unfathomable to me that there was no caffeine options, and I didn't even immediately think it was a prank. I thought maybe I was having some sort of mild stroke or something, but it never in a million years would I think that someone would be as diabolical as to remove the espresso machine, the coffee drip machine, the Keurig machine. It was all gone.
So there are places where you can get arrested for taking another man's coffee.
Yeah, rightly so.
Yep.
It's a
Bangkok,
good law.
Bangkok.
I think it's a caning. I think you get caned.
You do.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So that, like you said, mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
I feel like you have to be very careful with the pranking world because pranks beget prank.
Thoughts on the first record turning 40?
Mm-hmm. Zero thoughts. Time is elastic, expansive, and I don't know what it means. I guess I have lovely memories of being a different person at that point in time. Like I look at pictures of us in the studio making our first record, and it was so nice to be young and free and chaotic and thoughtless and destructive and frenetic and kinetic and all those different things that we were. Wouldn't want to be that now, but having been that, I look back and I was like, it's so nice to be able to make that many glaring mistakes and not even have it be a bad thing. Right. You're supposed to just be chaos in a bottle back then, and we were absolutely willing to do anything, try anything, go anywhere, anytime. and try to put it all on some magnetic tape.
It's kind of an amazing thing to capture, literally a record of you guys at that time. 6 months ago, you guys had just written your first song to like making this, your first record, and Andy Gill,
the guitar player from Gang of Four. It was also a studio that was about 47 steps from Hollywood Boulevard, so we were in our elements. Gary Panter, giving us a sharp cover for our first release.
The greatest, yeah. Huh?
It is what it is, to quote a number of MMA fighters. Mm-hmm. That's the expression du jour. Well, how did that knockout feel last weekend when you were unconscious for... It is what it is. The number doesn't really do anything for me. I
feel like it's an accurate representation of...
It wasn't an accurate representation, right, because Hillel and Jack had quit, so our sound changed pretty dramatically, particularly in the guitar department. Jack Sherman, talented dude for sure, but he didn't have that experimental, like,
the wildness of...
Hillel was on the verge of like a new frontier, tonally, texturally, where he played, how often or not often he played. It was very unique, and it was very Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. I think he found his best voice when we started playing.
Yeah. Huh.
And I liked what they played in Anthem. I liked what he played in What Is This? But I feel like it really suited his heart, and so that was different. So it wasn't like these bands that get to go make their perfect first record, where it sounds exactly how they want it to sound. Like Minor Threat or any of those bands. It was like a compromised version of us, which we would, eventually take care of. Our initial encounter with Rick Rubin would have come in about 1986, and Rick was incredibly established already with Run DMC, Beastie Boys, LL Cool J. Yep. He had his own record label, and the Beastie Boys had made a lot of noise early in their career, and we felt like we had made a lot of noise, but just heard by a lot less people. We were making the same noise, just not as many eyes and ears. And part of this was because I was struggling with addiction issues at that time in my life, to the point where it was a bit debilitating for progress as a human being, progress as a bandmate, progress as a band. There were a lot of things that could derail you, and that was one of them. But Rick had heard word that there was this band that was interesting enough to go see in the band practice environment. Next time you're on the West Coast, you got to go see the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're pretty intense. So he came to see us in the basement of EMI Records on Sunset Boulevard, and he brought Adam Horowitz and maybe Mike D. I think he had two of the three. And this is a different Rick, a younger Rick, scruff rather than long beard. And they came and they sat on the couch, and we were poor, and it was messy, and we had loud amps, and Rick wanted to hear a couple of songs, and we're like,
so it was for him? Like it was a performance?
No, we were already practicing.
Okay.
And I think there was some tempers were flaring, and people were upset, probably with me. I was an upsetting person. Okay. But Hello could also be an upsetting person. Flea could be an upsetting person. But I was consistently upsetting to the group at that time, justifiably so. And Rick sat on the couch, rather mild-mannered, rather timid, with his Beastie Boys
henchmen.
And they were all respectful and attentive. And we're like, okay, we'll play a couple of songs. And we would have run through maybe Backwoods at that time, maybe something off Freaky Styley. And I feel like there might have been dried blood on my body or something. And and at that point, they abruptly stood up and said, "Adios, we got to go." And I was like, "Oh, that was kind of quick." And they didn't even say goodbye. And a couple songs and they got out of here. And life went by. And eventually things got worse and better. We lost Hillel. But we regained ourselves along the way. And Rick wanted to meet us again, and now we're in a more sober state of mind, a more productive and kind of mentally healthy place. And we get with Rick, and he's like, "So you guys working on anything? You thinking about making a record?" And we're like, yeah, we got songs, and we want to make a record. And what happened that last time you came to visit us at EMI? You kind of like left. And he's like, "I thought someone was about to die. I thought someone was going to get murdered in that room. I had to leave." I was like, oh, so you were sensing murder about to happen. And he was like, absolutely.
Good reason to leave a room. I mean, yeah.
I was like, I did not realize that we were giving off the someone's about to die situation here. But I was a little lost, and he was a little cautious with his life, perhaps. But that is my first Rick memory. My second Rick memory is, this is going to be great. His attitude, his demeanor, his lack of strictness of rules. Like Michael Beinhorn had been very strict and successful in his methodology. He was very committed to his methodology, a very learned and capable man, Michael. But Rick was not about like, you're in a box full of rules and this is how we do it. He was like, well, let's just try anything. Well, where are we gonna set up? He's like, well, why don't we just set up in this room? Well, what mic should we use? Well, there's a black one on the floor. Let's try that one. And it suited our personality. It kind of suited our energy. And this was, leading up to the making of Blood Sugar.
How has Rick influenced the RHCP sound over the years?
The sound. I don't know that I say he influences the sound. He influences the energy, the consistency of working with the same person. He, has become a beloved friend, for better or worse, till death do us part kind of a friend. And the same thing that he always had, and he's, he never rested on his laurels. Like he was born an intellectual. He developed into a creative, hardworking, loves creating. But he never got to a certain place and said, "Oh, this is my formula.
Sound.
This is my successful thing." Yeah. He's like, he can't wait to hit another level, discover a new something. So he's this guy who's still in motion, still change. He is not the same guy he was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. He's a different dude. Yeah. And it's just as interesting and just as captivating, and for me, just as fun to work with. He is, if anything, become like less technical and even more like avant, experimental, intellectual, freestylist of creative expression, because he knows that there's other levels out there that can be found, and he wants to find them or die trying. So I don't really see him as the guy who like tells us what our sound is supposed to be.
One thing I would say maybe it's more of a recording approach, but I would say like starting with Blood Sugar, it sound like just the sound of the records sound more, for lack of better words, like organic, or it sounds like a band in a room.
It was
more so than like a real recording studio with everything isolated and everything,
Well, so that's what he was able to do that we had never been able to do until we worked with him. Was he captured what we sounded like. Everyone else tried to change what we sounded like, including Andy Gill. And that's what producers do. They're like, well, let's use these sounds, because that's like
tried and true, recording techniques or whatever.
Rick's whole thing was capturing you. who you are. That was his best quality. His strongest suit for us was like, I'm just gonna make the record sound like how you sound.
Yeah.
So he gets a lot of credit for that, because that's easier said than done. And we were a band in a room. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what we were. The drums were in the living room of the house that we rented to record in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's that's one of his techniques is capturing the person he's working with and who they really are.